Welcome to the Pickup Korea podcast, and today I want to go over approaching and meeting Korean girls at cafes. So this is a question I get asked pretty frequently. A lot of guys will see super attractive girls when they're out and about, out at cafes, because in Korea, as you know, if you live here, or if you've ever been to Korea, a lot of people tend to congregate at cafes, hang out at cafes, study at cafes, and now even due to coronavirus, the fact that there's no nightlife, or very little of it at least. You do have bars open, but there's not the club hangouts, the lounge, late lounge hangouts. So even more than before, you see a lot of girls just hanging out at cafes, chilling, meeting friends. And so, that being said, it is one of the better places these days to meet girls. And even before coronavirus, it's always been a really good place because you have them alone, hanging out, or really just killing time. And if you're in a good area of Seoul, you're going to see, at least a few attractive girls in there. And if you're hanging out there, if you have a book or laptop, if you're just chilling at a cafe, you're going to see girls coming in and out. You're going to see girls walking by. If you have like a good outdoor window seat in a populated area, it's good for praying mantis game, which we'll go into in a bit. So I recently posted an article. So I think I'll just go through this and then provide some commentary here. So approaching and meeting Korean girls at cafes. Cafes have always been great places for approaching and meeting Korean girls due to the fact that they go to hang out, relax, study, kill their time. With COVID-19 closing down nightlife, a lot of girls are just there hanging out, bored. And so here is a strategy guide to meeting them at cafes. So the first one is called praying mantis game. And so what this is basically you are either setting up at an outdoor seat, if not indoor, and getting more close to a window, close to the door. That way you're setting up camp. You can see girls coming in and out. You can see the girls in the cafe, leaving the cafe, walking outside. And so it makes it really easy. You're in a high volume area. It makes it easy to just kind of pop out and approach, and then eventually return to your seat or, even leave with the girl that you approached. And so, it's really highly recommended to do this style in a high volume area or a high volume cafe. You're going to see plenty of them walking in and out of the cafe, getting coffee to go, or just passing the cafe. You can bring a book or a laptop, which I often do, or an iPad, and you can be reading and then, or doing work or whatever you're going to do. And instead of doing that at home, where you're not really going to meet girls, most likely, you can do it at a busy place where you can hit two birds with one stone, so to speak, right? You can do your work, read your book, and approach a good amount of girls during the course of that. And so, this is a really fun. You can even do this with a friend. You can go out with a friend. You can be hanging out, chatting, and take turns approaching, which is really good. And you're not, walking 10 hours on the street exhausted. So it is a very efficient way in many respects as well. Also, it's good because you can also, if you see a girl walking by, you can bring her to the cafe that you're at. If you see a girl leaving, you can bounce out with her to another venue or just get the number if it goes well and go back to your seat. Also, a good thing about this approach is it doesn't put a lot of pressure on the girl. So if you're approaching a girl in the middle of the cafe and you have, a lot of people watching, looking at you, if it goes well, that's cool. But then it's sort of weird and, you're going to burn your number or numbers if you're just hopping seat to seat, right? Or, if it doesn't go well and it's kind of burns out that part of the cafe in many respects, right? And so this is a very low pressure way to approach. It's sort of invisible game, and you can approach a lot of girls coming in and out or walking by. So you have sort of an unlimited a range of girls, right? So it's a very wise approach. The other approach is going direct. So this is definitely more polarizing. It'll put more pressure on the girl. What you're going to do here, though, is walk directly up to the girl's seat. And this is often, say you're going to leave a cafe, say this is the only shot you have, right? You're not going to be there. You can't just wait for her to leave. In this sense, you just got to take the shot, right? So this is a good chance when, there's no other way, I would say, is you can walk up. I recommend sitting down next to her instead of like lingering over her seat, which a lot of guys do. you can approach standing up and she's sitting down, but then just sort of take a seat and imply that, you've got to leave soon, or, you can just sort of sit down and feel it out a bit, start the interaction. And if she's clearly uncomfortable or, implies that she wants you to leave, then you leave, right? But if you stand over and hover over her for the whole time, generally that's not a good vibe. It's best to sit down and almost make it look like to other people as well that you guys know each other. You just walk up, sit down naturally, right? Rather than this weirdo lingering over her seat, right? With other people just staring. So, you can make it natural as possible. The benefit of this approach is that it's a bold move, and if it goes well, usually ends up being a good number. You're also putting your balls on the line. You're overcoming social pressure. You're also not waiting around. You're taking the shot that you have if a girl that you're really into, or you're leaving that cafe. Also, this approach, as I mentioned, it will burn out a cafe if you're just machine gunning this kind of style, right? And so you don't want to be that guy. Therefore, oftentimes it's good to do a praying mantis approach mixed in with maybe one or two of these sort of targeted approaches, which is more direct, right? Okay, so the third way to approach is more of an indirect or incidental approach. And so here, this approach is very low pressure and can be done virtually anywhere. You can make a comment on the situation, the environment, with a girl you're in line with. You can just, either make an observation or talk about the situation. In this sense, you can sort of feel out whether she's receptive, and you're not necessarily burning it out at all because you're just making a comment. It's almost friendly banter, chit chat. And if she's receptive, you can continue. If not, you can still approach direct, even other girls at the cafe, or just go to the praying mantis approach we mentioned earlier. In Korea, the cafes are super packed. One thing I like to do, if there's an open seat next to a really attractive girl, I'll set my bag down before I get my coffee and say, oh, can you watch the bag really quick? There's no seats, not many seats. I'm gonna go grab a coffee, thanks. And then after getting the coffee, you come back and kind of thank her for it. And then you can start an interaction, make a comment about her, cold read her, explore her story, share what you're up to today, talk about the situation, right? And so this is a good sort of incidental way, right? And obviously, in all these situations, if the girl's looking like she wants to be left alone, you eventually sort of excuse yourself or just thank her and then do what you're going to do. Also here, these approaches are really good they can be used at other places like brunch cafes, some kind of restaurants as well. They have these sort of cafe restaurant hybrids. You can use this approach at a lot of these sort of venues that are similar to a cafe, right? To kind of summarize, you have strategy one, the praying mantis, which is just getting set up either near the door, at the little bench near the door, or outdoor seats where you can kind of approach girls coming in and out, or those walking by. It's very incognito. People don't notice it because the girl left the cafe or she's just walking outside the cafe. So this is a very preferable way for me that I personally prefer. There's also the direct, which is, if you're leaving the cafe or you're at the cafe and you just see a girl that's totally your type and you don't have much time, so the best way to go. You just go direct, try to sit next to her, and then sit with her, so to speak, as if you're together, and go from there. And the third is the incidental approach, which is commenting maybe while you're in line, maybe on a girl that's sitting next to you, or even the watch my bag thing that I mentioned earlier. And so these are 3 useful tips that you can actually apply if you go to a cafe today. And like I mentioned, with COVID-19, there's not a lot of late night bars or anything. Things usually close at 9 or 10. And so cafes are also closing at that time. And so you can almost treat a cafe like a bar in that respect. And even at the end, if you see a girl that's really good looking, at the end, you can try to bounce out with her, almost as if it was a bar or a club, and sort of leave the cafe together and see where things go too, right? And so this has been about approaching and meeting Korean girls at cafes. And to mention, I do have that FAQ cheat sheet you can check out, and the Pick Up Korea comprehensive ebook, which includes a lot of tips, way more than just this article and this podcast. Very comprehensive, so you can check that out at pickupkorea.com. And until next time.